Hi, you clicked onto today's tropical tidbit for Tuesday. You can really tell it's mid-September in the Atlantic over here. We got Invest 92L, Hurricane Eigor, and Hurricane Julia, who's developing an eye over here. Looking at 92L, this is going to be a tropical depression very soon, probably is already. The NHC will look for a few more hours of persistence and then likely upgrade. This is coming across the Yucatan over here, and will be probably impacting Mexico. South Texas should still keep an eye on this, but Mexico is most likely to get the hit, and this will probably try to strengthen into a strong tropical storm, at least on its way across the Gulf. This is Hurricane Eigor over here. You can see it lost some convection last night. Cloud tops warmed a whole bit during the evening hours, but the core has since rebuilt a lot better, and the eye is once again looking very impressive this morning. You can see the hurricane has started moving west-northwest finally. After defying the models for quite a long time on the west and west-southwest movement, it has now finally started what you might call its recurve, though it's not recurving yet. This is just a west-northwest motion because the ridge is weaker, and from this point through the next couple days, the models will actually have a good track for once. The model consensus has been very wrong so far on the short-term track of this. Long-term track might not be such a huge error, but I still think they need to shift west on that as well. And over here we see the 8-day NACE over here. MSLP means sea level pressure mean. Ensemble mean, you can see that the storm has recurved by now. It's up here, but you can see, look at all these ensemble members showing the storm hanging back behind, and the model consensus takes this well east of this position, but you can still see how the pattern could potentially support the storm trying to hang back a little longer. I don't think this comes back to the US coast, but I do think it tries to get a little farther west than the model consensus has it. I think it makes a run at 70 west before recurving out, which would be better news for Bermuda, but they're going to have to watch this very closely. But we have a polar vortex diving in out of Canada, and as this comes across, there's not going to be much of a deep trough here. It's not like some monster weakness. It's more of a flat flow in here, perhaps a slight cyclonic bend as the hurricane nears. Just pretty much a weakness in the ridge is all this is, and once the polar vortex comes over here and lifts out, the ridge builds back in over the top like you see here, and the storm could still be stalling around over here by that time according to the NAFs. We'll see how it goes. I think the model is still a little too far east. This should come up, I think, west of Bermuda over here, perhaps make a run at 70 west before recurving. The models currently have it very close to Bermuda, or actually east of Bermuda, on its way out, and either of these would be a bad storm for Bermuda. Obviously the track almost directly over them would be the worst case scenario. Hopefully the storm will be weakening by then, which it should be, but it will still be quite a powerful and potent storm, and these folks should be preparing for a bad hurricane in a few days or so. Now what I wanted to show you today was the Korean model from the Korean Meteorological Agency over here. This is their ensemble forecasted 500 millibar means and anomalies for early October. I'm going to show you the pattern that we're going into. This model, I think, represents fairly well what I think we're going towards during next month. You can see over here more troughing starting to develop over Siberia and Alaska. Over here you can see the big fat ridge over Canada as we go through the first 10 days of October. Still got a little bit of blues over here. We have had the ridge to the north of the eastern seaboard over here, but it's been a little bit too far north, so we've had some troughing showing up here, which is why storms like Earl and Danielle and now Eigor are recurving. But there have been some close calls. Earl was a very close call and could have easily been a much worse storm than it was for the United States coastline. We go out to mid-October and look what happens to the trough, digging into Alaska over here, and this is really going to be an early start to winter for us up here with colder temperatures and the troughing building. And we have a blocking ridge right now, but a big storm is going to sweep in and wipe that all away, and the polar vortex is going to be starting to set up over here. You can see more ridging over the pole as the Arctic oscillation is still negative for the time being. See where the ridge is setting up now over the eastern seaboard over here in the northeast US, and this is a pattern that is very similar to what you typically see in a negative PDO over here, because you have a whole bunch of ridging over the North Pacific. You can't quite see over to Japan over here, but there's a whole lot of ridging over here. Trough over Alaska and ridging over the eastern United States is classic negative PDO signature, or a cold PDO would be another way of saying it. If we go out to late October, This really digs in over here to check out the trough in the Gulf of Alaska, a big ridge over the Pacific, and notice where the ridge is setting up now over southeast Canada, and look at the relative negatives to the south over here, over the southwest Atlantic Basin, Gulf of Mexico, and Caribbean, and this is that classic pattern that can set up a lot of threats to the United States coastline. Now this is, remember, this is going to be October now. This model is right now in this image showing the final 10 days of October. There are going to be no tracks coming in like this from the Cape Verde Islands. The Cape Verde season is going to shut down in here. Instead, we're going to be having tracks coming out of here and out of here. Maybe less over here by the time we get into the latter part of the month, but the Caribbean certainly is going to be producing some storms, I think. And notice how the anomalies lean back over here with this troughing, and this is implying trough splits that come off of the trough and spin down here underneath the building ridge over the top, and you can get fun and games down here in this area of the world. And this is a reason I think we need to be concerned. The models have been showing a great lowering of pressures in this area, and I think October is not going to see the season shut down. It'll shut down out here, but that doesn't mean the season is over. All that will happen is the activity will simply shift west, and once it shifts west, the tracks shift west, and then you can easily get storms coming out of the Caribbean and recurving into the Gulf of Mexico. And you see how the trough is sticking its nose into the western United States over here, and this would beat down the blocking ridge that has been over Texas, which means that there would be more opportunity for these things to curve up into perhaps Florida, or even have a free ride into the northwest Gulf. So no one's off the hook here. This is a nasty pattern developing for October, and October could very well be the month where the U.S. gets the most hits on our coastline, and that's sort of a rarity. But in this kind of a year, in a La Nina year, the seasons tend to last longer and are weighted more towards the latter part of the season. And if this pattern finally matures into the way that we've been thinking it would eventually do during the heart of the hurricane season, this is a big pattern for hurricanes threatening the United States. And I threw the 5,000 foot temperatures in here for late October just to show you how cold it gets over Alaska and the west coast of North America here by the end of the month, and this is setting up for a nasty winter for this area of the world over here. And the pattern over here is why you're seeing stuff like this showing up on the GFS over here. Has been consistently now starting to show storms in the southwest Atlantic Basin, a couple of them here by day 12, and this is nearing the end of September over here, and I've been saying for many days now that the final week of September may see things start to ramp up in this area of the world, and the United States may have to watch for a threat to the coast before the month is out over here. And this is part of the pattern that's going to be developing as we head into October. And you notice things like this front out here, which are nicely mirroring this kind of a pattern where the trough starts to stick its nose in here, ridge in here, so you get cold air trying to sneak into this area of the world, and this really likes to incubate this area when you have fronts approaching from the west but not getting down into the Gulf, which would end up in shearing storms. But you get them off to the northwest like this, and you can really get this area to fire up underneath the ridge. And this is what we're starting to see on the model. The ensemble members also show much lowering pressures in here, and the potential for some storms running through by the time we get towards the end of the month. Cape Verde season will shut down by the end of this month, and we'll see the activity shift over here. So get ready for the southwest Atlantic Basin to light up. We've already got a couple of storms to watch, and we shall see what happens. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.